Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is unconditionality. And what does it look like? What is unconditional love? And how does that show up in our behaviors? Can we love someone unconditionally and still pass judgment on their behavior, or can we love someone unconditionally and not like them? So I think it'll be an interesting topic because we talk a lot about unconditional love and we get to look at what it looks like in real life, right? But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs and flowing into your bloodstream and nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your electrons, all your molecules, creating this brilliant beam of light out into the world, lighting your path and the path for others. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue, and now let's just gently press our palms together and very, very softly rub your fingers against your palms and feel the tickling and the tingling and that marvelous sensation that allows us to appreciate these physical forms that give us life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So yeah, unconditionality, that's a biggie. Because we talk about unconditional love. I'm wondering, I think that it is a concept that definitely works in the abstract. And what I mean by that is when we're not confronted by the challenges of living, of communicating, of daily interaction and frustration and disappointment and betrayal and all kinds of other life occurrences. The concept of unconditional love can kind of go out the window. And so I wonder what it means to you. I mean, I do think it's possible to love someone and not like them. And if we think about that, if we think about loving someone but not liking them, is that love unconditional? You know, if we love someone and maybe the interactions between us are toxic and we elect to not have communication with them, are we loving them unconditionally? Are we still able to love them unconditionally? I think it's an interesting conversation. So I want to let you guys know I don't see any comments, which is why I'm not responding to them. So if you are commenting, I checked on Facebook. It looks like we're live, but I'm, like I said, I'm not seeing comments. Maybe I should just go check Facebook again to see if anything's happening. I don't see anything yet. So I think, you know, the idea of, there you go, Dennis. You're so kind. So good to have you here with us. I really appreciate it. And we're talking about unconditionality. And what does that mean? Does it mean lack of judgment? Does it mean like suspension of judgment? If I love you unconditionally, does that mean that I don't that I don't judge your behaviors, or that I don't have conflict with your ideas or opinions? Does it mean if I have unconditional love that we have um, a relationship without friction? I think it's often a whole lot easier to love someone from afar, where we don't have to contend with the ins and outs of daily conflict or challenges, right? Like I think it's true that I can love you and not love your opinions and not love your behaviors. Um, and maybe that love is unconditional. I don't know. I'm really curious to have your feedback. What do you think about this? As I said in the beginning, I think that unconditional love is something that works really well in the abstract, when we're not confronted with the moment-to-moment, day-to-day challenges of life's interactions, right? But to be in a space of unconditional love, how does that impact our ability to accept different people's perspectives, different people's beliefs and behaviors? If somebody acts in a way that is just offensive to our core, can we still love that person unconditionally? And if we do, what does that mean? How does it impact our behavior? How does it show up? Does it change the fact that we have disagreements? Does it change the fact that we're fighting? Maybe we can be outright fighting. Can we still have unconditional love when we're fighting? And if that unconditional love is completely divorced from circumstance, what does it mean? What impact does it have? What difference does it make, I guess, is the question. If I love you unconditionally and I'm not talking to you, what does it matter that I love you unconditionally, right? I think it's more than a semantic argument. I think it's more than a semantic conversation, because it is something that we talk about a lot, is unconditional love, and something that many of us aspire to. Does unconditional love mean unconditional acceptance of what? Of objectionable behavior, of offensive actions? I'm wondering, like, and what is the value? Why do we place such a value on unconditional love? Maybe true love is unconditional. Maybe it's I love you no matter what. No matter what you do, I love you. Does that mean I'm going to continue to have interaction with you? If you've abused me, can I love you unconditionally, and would I have anything to do with you? How does that work? I think that love is a transcendent emotion. Actually, when the truth is, I think when we're talking about unconditional love, we're not talking about emotion at all. I think we're talking about a state of being. A state of being where there's a spaciousness, and something, an acceptance that transcends circumstance. And I guess the question is, how as human beings do we live with a foot in either world? A foot in the world of transactional relationship, where we interact with each other in all different capacities, and we have our alignments, and we have our differences, and we have our opinions, and we have our actions, and then we have this declaration of love, like even in the midst of a heinous argument, I can say I love you. And what does that mean? What is that I love you encapsulating? Is it encapsulating a connection? Is it an affirmation of some kind of bond? Is it a commitment that may or may not always be heartfelt? Is it a commitment to holding a connection with another person? What is it? I'm really, really curious as to what your perspective is on this. I think it's worth questioning what is love. What are we, and particularly unconditional love. What is it? Is it simply a concept? Is it maybe it's something that we choose as a guiding star to come back to when we lose alignment, to come back to a place of I love you, like as a choice, as something that defies circumstance. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what is happening when I say I love you unconditionally. And no matter what you do, I love you. I may not like you, but I love you. So what is that? What is that love? What is that declaration? What is that commitment? What am I saying when I say I love you unconditionally? Because I think the unconditional part makes it transcend emotion. It's not about a fluffy feeling, because it's not always easy to love somebody that you don't like. It's not always easy to love somebody who says and does things that you can't abide. And so in that respect, I think in many ways, it's much easier to love unconditionally from a distance, right? Because then you can hold that maybe it's acceptance on some level, even though it may not be accepting of behavior. Maybe it's still an embracing of someone, and it can be held more readily when you don't have that someone pushing all your buttons, so that you can feel. So here's the thing is I wonder, I really truly wonder how much of it is about feeling at all, rather than a commitment, like a declaration that I love you. And that means I hold space for you in my heart, that I wonder how that translates, because it's not a fluffy feeling. A lot of times, when you're really angry at someone and you've been hurt, to come to a place of saying I love you, it's not because you feel it in that moment. It's really more that you have a broader commitment that you've made to hold space. Maybe that's what it is holding space for another human, even without approving of the way they may be behaving, or the way that they conduct their lives, or the choices they make, or the opinions they have. I think it's interesting, we talk about love-hate relationships. Dennis said, "You've chosen a highly charged, equivocal topic today, Your Highness." You elevate me, Dennis. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is a really highly charged topic, particularly because so many of us who are spiritually oriented talk about unconditional love. Good morning, Bernadette. So glad you could join us. We're talking about unconditionality and what is this thing that we call unconditional love, and how does it translate to our behavior in day-to-day life? So does it mean, if we love someone unconditionally, does it mean that we suspend all our judgments about them? I don't think it does. I think that what happens is we end up living in this weird dichotomy, and I'm not really entirely sure what this Elaine, I was waiting for you to chime in. I agree. It is a delicious topic. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really interesting conversation, because, we take it for granted. We talk about unconditional love, and we elevate that notion. So Bernadette says unconditional means no judgment. Okay. So if you say that you love someone unconditionally, what happens when they do something that offends you? What happens if they do something hurtful? What happens if they do something that violates your very sense of propriety or morality even? So what happens to your unconditional love then? Is your love, can you still hold unconditional love for somebody when you don't like them, when you don't like how they're being? Can you still hold unconditional love for them? And if you can, what does that mean? What is it? And what difference does it make? I'm just going to be real provocative. What difference does it make if you and I don't talk and we don't get along and I love you unconditionally? So what does that mean? So I think that we get to look at that maybe this notion of unconditional love is holding a spaciousness beyond our moment-to-moment interactions, beyond our moment-to-moment judgments, and to say that and to declare that at the heart of things, I have this unshakable space for you, this unshakable love and appreciation for you, regardless of whatever judgments I might have. I wonder. So Bernadette says, same if it was your child doing it. You come from a place of love and teach them how to treat you. I think that's laudable, Bernadette. I think that's awesome. And let's say someone abuses you physically, someone sexually abuses you, somebody emotionally abuses you. is there a place to be able to be loving them unconditionally and still being respectful of yourself and your own safety and your own needs? You know, so one thing that just popped into my head is the behavior. We are not our behaviors. And so perhaps we can dislike or even hate the behavior and still somehow find space for the person, to find an unconditional space for holding, I'm not sure what it is we're holding. So Bernadette says, so then you have boundaries. Yes. Don't we all have boundaries? I believe that we get to set boundaries on how we allow ourselves to be treated. You know, what we get to set boundaries on, what kinds of situations we subject ourselves to. We get to be respectful of ourselves and our well-being, and that we don't have an obligation to be abused, to receive abuse. And we can also recognize that the person who's being abusive has their own challenges and their own wounds, and we might even be able to forgive them that, but does that mean that we need to subject ourselves to it? This is thorny stuff, people. This is the real deal, these questions. You know, I think it's really important for us to be looking at what is this whole, good morning, Lisa, so glad to have you joining us. We're talking about unconditionality, and really, is it possible to be to love unconditionally in day to day? You know, can we not like someone's behavior, not even like the person, the way they're showing up in the world, and still have this space of unconditional love for them? Bernadette says, I was abused as a child. Bernadette, I'm so sorry for that. I'm so sorry that you had to endure that. As an adult, I have set boundaries as to who stays over there and I stay over here, and we as to he stays over there and I stay over here, and we shall never be alone together in any situation. And so you've set a boundary for yourself, Bernadette, that affirms your safety and your well-being. And my question, and this is a really hard question, is there a place to be able to hold the unconditional love for that person who was so horribly abusive and who probably was horrifically damaged? And what does it mean to hold unconditional love for them, if indeed you can? And how does it show up in your behavior? Lisa says, my mom would say, I love you always, but I don't like you very much. And I guess that's what we're talking about, Lisa, is so if someone loves you but doesn't like you, what does that do? What is that love? You know, what does our giving unconditional love, what does it accomplish? What is it about? Is it about me as the person who is holding that love for you, who is holding that space of just space, let's say? Or is it about you? So Bernadette says, but it still comes from a loving place. Yeah, I think that we can be angry and resentful and still potentially hold the unconditional love. And I know it sounds like a terrible paradox, but Elaine says, love is the essence of my being. And I accept with practice all that I experience outside of myself as is unconditionally in the moment. For me, all is a reflection of myself. I'm truly freeing myself of all self-judgments, condemnation, and returning to the truth within. All is pure, innocent love beyond the human's role, playing out to assist me in my awakening to truth. And so, Elaine, it still comes back to, do you have disagreements with people? Do you have moments of anger? Are there moments when someone does something that that is unacceptable, and yet that love abides? So Lisa says it's harder. I know with my daughter uses it as a rite of passage to dictate my life, but I love her and she loves me. And I think it's so important to be looking at loving. Like, what does it mean? Bernadette says, holding love is about making a decision for your own safety, love for yourself. I think that that's absolutely one part of it. And Elaine says, not anymore, that you don't get angry anymore. And you don't, Elaine, like I said, you're a unicorn. And I'm so glad to have you be part of our conversations, because you've gotten to the place of transcendent non-reactivity. Dennis says, I'm currently experiencing the I love you, but I don't like you syndrome, and consequently transferring my love to another. Yeah, it's a thorny path, right? This whole thing about love. And the unconditional love is a whole different category. It truly is, because I think it is more a declaration and commitment than it is an experience of emotion. I think it is a holding of space and an allowance in a certain way, allowance for, I don't know. I don't have answers. So, but I am going to wrap it up for this morning. So maybe we can continue discussing this, because I think to be looking at the nature of love and the nature of unconditionality and how we manage to integrate that with our day-to-day interactions, I think it's a worthy topic. So anyway, I hope this has served food for thought. And I so appreciate you and your engagement and these conversations. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. It's so wonderful to be with you. Please check out all the awesome other programming on Enlightened World Network. Bernadette says, being human and alive, I can still be angry, but the key is not to stay in that mindset. Acknowledgements of situations and move on to self-worth. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Elaine, this is to close it out. I feel you and me as the same, for there is no separation. However I treat the world outside myself, I do unto myself. And that is an awesome way to close this conversation. Thank you for that, Elaine, that we are the world. What we experience is a reflection of ourselves unto ourselves. And yeah, lots to think about. So much love to you. Until next time.